Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com. And by Wistia. Take control of your video marketing with powerful tools and analytics built specifically for business. Go to wistia.com/twist to get your free Wistia account today. And by AWS Activate. It's easy to start and scale your business with Amazon Web Services. Check out free resources like one-on-one office hours with AWS Solutions Architects. Learn more and sign up at aws.amazon.com/activate.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis, and this is This Week in Startups. Today on the program, yes, the Homebrew guys are with us. Finally, Hunter Walk and Satya Patel are with us. They're tearing it up, investing in a lot of companies. It's a brand new venture capital firm, and they're doing a great job. Stick with us. It'll be an amazing episode.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. This is This Week in Startups. It's a podcast video show on the interwebs where we talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about starting companies. We talk about raising capital. We talk about getting our asses kicked and kicking ass sometimes. And every week we do it on Tuesday and Fridays. Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time. We interview an individual or two, entrepreneur, VC. And on Fridays, we have our news roundtable. We've been doing it for 4 years, over 400 episodes. And you can follow it all at TWiST Startups on Twitter or thisweekinstartups.com. And you can follow me, the host, at Jason on Twitter. If you ever have a question for me, Jason at inside.com. And we are here in San Francisco. That's right, the Silicon Valley you hear about on HBO. I thought it was terrible. I mean, they had some good jokes in it, but anyway, I don't want to talk about the whole. Maybe I'll talk to you guys about that. You guys saw it, right? We'll talk about it in a minute.
You watched it. I didn't watch it.
All right, here we go. We're at Golden Gate. We're at WeWork Golden Gate right now, and they've been so nice to build us this beautiful studio. They've got locations in New York, San Francisco, and LA. And so thanks to our friends at WeWork.com. If you ever need a desk, it's like desk as a service. It's really great for startups. All right, listen. Hunter and Satya, you guys started Homebrew, I guess like a year ago or less than a year ago, but you probably been working on it for 2 years or something.
We we had worked together, back in the day at Google, so we knew each other, and kind of 2003, 4, 5, 6.
You guys joined Google in 2003.
Yeah,
yes.
He was there.
Before it was public.
January.
Yes, it went public in August of 2004.
Right.
Yeah, I think they filed their S1 probably a few months after I joined. So people knew that they were on, this crazy growth, but they hadn't yet released Gmail. They hadn't released Maps. So there were a bunch of products.
But Orchid was there in 2003.
Orchid himself was there.
Right. But Orchid came. How many people were there? 1,000? 2,000?
It was about like 800 for you,
1,000,
and about I came end of the year, so I think it was probably about 1,200 for me. Maybe. So they were entering that next period of hypergrowth.
Sure.
So they pushed the bar down, and I managed.
You were able to sneak in there when they lowered it. So what were each of you hired to do?
We worked on AdSense. Basically, at the time, AdSense was a new product, contextual advertising, and had largely launched as a product for the medium and long tail websites.
Yeah.
And we were working on the team that was trying to take it upstream. So how would the CNN.coms of the world
New York Times.
This, yes, to complement a direct sales force.
So did you guys were on the tech team, the product team? What did you do exactly? Business development?
Sort of like business and product, and then moved over, once that got going, then moved over to manage different AdSense products under Susan Wojcicki.
Yeah. And of course, Susan is now running YouTube.
My streams have collided. Yes.
Exactly. Crazy.
I ended YouTube after the AdSense years.
And at that time, the concept of having text-based ads on your website was kind of a new thing. They really didn't exist that much. Because I remember when, not you guys specifically, but Kim Malone and others came calling for trying to get us to put it on Engadget. And actually, when you guys went public, there were 2 case studies included. One was Weblogs Inc., which had started making $3,000 a day, which was $1 million a year, which is kind of amazing, and the New York Times. How do you think that product, putting ads off of Google, impacted the company, Google?
It's really an interesting story because it was almost by accident, right? It wasn't intended to be originally something that was going to empower the long tail and enable long tail publishers to finance and fund their businesses. And it was almost by accident that we decided that it would be something that would be appealing to the head of the tail. And so how it impacted the company was that for the first time, Google really had to think outside its four walls. Right? Everything that Google had done up until that point in terms of monetization had been focused on Google.com.
Right.
And talking to the outside world was new for a lot of people at Google, and that's largely why folks like Hunter and I were brought on to first establish those connections and help improve the product so that AdSense became appealing to a broader set of people, both in the head of the tail and the long tail.
What was Google like during that 10-year period from going right before going public and up until you guys left, I guess? How long ago did you leave?
So Satya left January 07.
Early 07.
Yeah, that was around the same time that I went from sort of, the mothership in Mountain View over to YouTube.
In San Bruno.
In San Bruno. And I think my last official date was actually like February 5th of last year.
Wow.
So the body left in February. I think the heart probably left a few months earlier.
I hope so, since we started raising money a little before that.
They knew.
Right.
I told them.
Well, how did it change? Because the organization seemed, at least from the outside, to be, a pretty simple organization. We're going to build this great search product, and then we're going to put ads on top of it. And now we look at Google as not a search or ad company, even though 98% of the revenue comes from advertising or whatever it is to this day. We look at it as a technology company making self-driving cars, hardware Google Glass, mobile operating systems with Android, and buying crazy stuff like, pick the last 7 things they bought, Nest and whatever.
Yeah, I would argue that the external perception of Google has caught up with the internal perception. I think people internally always thought of it as a technology company first.
Right.
And the pitch to people back then was come be an entrepreneur within the context of Google, which has these amazing resources and this cash machine that nobody knows about. And really, I think Google did an amazing job for a long time of making people feel like that they were empowered to build businesses and create products with little oversight.
When you guys were there, was Eric Schmidt running the company or was Larry running the company? Because there's always this kind of sense that Eric Schmidt was a figurehead, but that Larry and Sergey were actually running it. And then some people say no, he was actually running it, or the 3 of them were running it. Who was running Google for that period when Eric Schmidt was there? Eric, Larry, Sergey, who? How did it run?
Yeah, I think the period for most of my tenure and all of your tenure, Eric was CEO, and I think he, they talked about managing, in that sort of triangle. And the way that I think about it is that there were certain issues that either out of passion or expertise, Larry and Sergey would spend time on, but that there was always clarity that Eric was the CEO. Mm-hmm. And especially when it came down to some of the business issues, complemented by Patrick Burchett, who joined as CFO, probably like 2005, 6, mid-2000s. And he was just a great hire because he gave another sort of operationally minded asset to the company without being sort of your stereotypical bean counter. He would be in the early betas of YouTube products sending us notes about, why does this work that way? And you'd go to one of the big executive meetings and to have your CFO actually have, used your product before potentially even some of the product VPs was I think just speaks to what, Googliness was.
And what do you think, Satya?
Yeah, I think that, Larry, Sergey, and Eric were very explicit around the triangle.
Yeah.
And they had natural tendencies and their own biases. And so it was always, I think, a situation where if you go into a meeting with them to present something, they each had perspective to lend, and all of them were right in the things that they said generally, because they're always pushing us to think bigger, think broader, think longer term.
I think though, when a few years back when Larry reassumed the CEO position, the Google of today definitely represents Larry. I think it moved from being a place that both questions and answers came bottom up. And now I think the questions come top down and the answers come bottom up. And that's to say, as sort of Larry's talked about, more wood behind fewer arrows. He's created this group of single product engineering leads, single product leads, who run his different divisions, and they spend a lot of time together. Try to, if there's sort of differences of opinion, try to solve that at an executive level as opposed to having the teams need to bounce off each other. And I think some people might say that aspects of that feel a little bit more prescriptive. There's not as much ability just to create anything you want and ship it.
Right.
But I think it provides a more cohesive, set of decisions to be made internally, and certainly, hopefully over time, a better view to the consumer, to the advertiser, to the publisher about what Google is doing and where they want to get.
Yeah,
to.
because having been a 10-year partner, as you know, I've had my problems with Google of late. Like I felt like in the early days you could get an answer and meet with people. And it was just sort of like a very basic thing, like, okay, Kim Malone's running AdSense, and we're running it, and she talks to me, and everything's good. And if there was like something to do with search, I could talk to Matt Cutts, and he would have you up for lunch or whatever, and we talk, and everything seemed pretty simple. Then the Panda update happened, and like they pull the rug out of an entire industry without any warning. We all get demolished. They won't talk to us, and then YouTube takes all the revenue. It's like it felt like the relationship between the publishers, and I've told people at Google this, I'm very public about it. It felt like Google doesn't really need the publishers anymore, so they just don't take as much care with them. What do you think of my position and sort of, there's a little bit of like an anti-Google from the publisher perspective, like Google's competing with us, Google's taking too much, and there's a general consensus, I think, among publishers, like they've moved from being Google is like this great partner to maybe like a more Rupert Murdoch position, like be careful letting Google in the hen house.
I think it's easy from the outside of any company to think that they're making deliberate moves or decisions around their customer base, their partner base, whatever it is. But I think the reality is that companies grow, and you move from a world where somebody's responsible and feels kind of the love, care, and nurturing of its community and is able to take action and apologize after the fact to one where it becomes the case where 40 people have to sign off on doing anything different or new. And that's probably what you're feeling, like a lot, like happens at a lot of companies and the external world feels.
Google's, of course, I'll correct you. YouTube doesn't keep the majority of revenue.
Oh, wait, 45%.
Gives the majority.
The majority goes
to
there,
the publisher. But I think the
an unsustainable deal.
One of the things Google has always been very good at is using data to make decisions that they believe are in the best interest of the long-term health of the multiple constituencies they sell, they serve almost without emotion, right? And so
that's the problem I have.
So if
robotic,
I don't think it's ever been about a maliciousness or an overly aggressive competitive stance. It's just been about this is what the data says. Logic says we should do this, and so we should do that.
Yeah.
You mean we have to tell people we're doing that, or you mean they might need some notice? Some of that, there's certainly been times that Google's been a little bit maybe tone deaf in how communicating.
Yeah.
But it's not
malicious.
It's not malicious, and it's not an organizational value to say, oh, let's be capricious in our decision making, and everybody else will just surf in the wake. I just think it's sort of it's the byproduct of what makes Google great and the scale
it's a weakness.
That they've been able to operate.
So you're a data-driven business. You make these decisions on a data basis, and maybe you don't the ramifications, maybe they're not well thought out at all times. But that's why I gave up on the relationship with them. And I told them, I just don't feel like I can work with Google anymore because in the old days, you guys cared, and now I just feel like you don't care. And I told this to Salar and Susan and Sergey. I've told it to everybody in the company. You have to 10x how you treat partners, I think. And stop trying to 10x everything, getting to the moon, and maybe just think about the partners who helped you get there.
I think Google's always talked about having sort of three constituencies: advertisers, publishers, and end users, and trying to keep all three happy. Yeah. And depending upon where you sit in the product org, or if you're one of those may be more important to your particular business, but really at the executive level, they're trying to balance all three of those. And so I think sometimes it gets out of balance, or sometimes in the short term, you have to make a decision where it doesn't necessarily it's not a win-win. I guess win-win-win.
Win-win-win,
for all three. But I think over time, there's been plenty of great businesses built on top of Google.
The default answer is always whatever's good for the user is eventually going to be good for the advertiser and publisher, but it may cause some short-term pain. And sometimes that pain is not expected or well thought out or understood.
Yeah, that was the main problem.
And that's what you're experiencing.
I think what we get most excited about, sort of some of the businesses you ended up funding at Battery and then at Twitter, and sort of for me, going over to YouTube was really the opportunity to go to a product and a culture and a community that was both art and science. That was sort of, technology, but also a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
Where you could have the
But
scale.
you're saying inside of Google.
Yeah, inside of Google.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube was 65 people at the point of acquisition.
Yeah, all right.
It
When
was
we get
already
back from the
growing very
commercial
quickly.
break, let's talk about YouTube. 'Cause
Okay.
YouTube is such a phenomenon. You were there from day one, right?
Well, it was
Day one of
18
the
months.
acquisition.
Yeah.
Day one of the acquisition, I'm saying. Yeah. Okay, when we get back from this very important partner message, yeah. Yes, what an amazing episode we're having here with the boys from Homebrew. I love having venture capitalists on the program and angel investors. They're just such a key part of building a great company. Another key part of building a great company is having great counsel. You need a great lawyer. And Scott Walker runs the Walker Corporate Law Group, and he is dedicated and motivated and on a mission to help startups form their companies, raise money, protect them through their terms of service, help them grow, build advisors, employees, and eventually raise multiple rounds of funding and have an incredible M&A transaction or become a huge sustainable business. All of his attorneys have 10 to 20 years experience at those other big firms, which means you're not getting any junior associates working on your deal. This is critical. And Scott believes that billable hours result in waste and that startups need to conserve their cash and put it into their product. He's doing it for the right reasons. Scott is addicted, like I am, and like probably you are as a person listening to this program, to startups, to founders, and to just innovating. He's just a real mensch and a good friend of mine. You can reach him at 415-979-9998. 415, that's San Francisco, you know that. So all you have to remember is 979-9998. 979-9998. Or just email him direct. He picks up his email, scott@walkercorporatelaw.com. scott@walkercorporatelaw.com. Fixed fees. He'll tell you what it's going to cost to do something. I've sent so many startups to him, so many founders, and they all tell me the same thing. Scott took time out to explain complex things to me, and he controlled the billing. In fact, I've had startups tell me he met with them for an hour or two and didn't even charge him. Again, I give him my highest recommendation. Scott is a great guy. Follow him on Twitter, Scott Ed Walker, and again, Scott at Walker Corporate Law. Email him and then just put Jason sent me in the subject line because he'll treat anybody who calls incredibly well. But if you put Jason sent me, I bet you he'll treat you even a little bit better. All right, let's get back to this program, Homebrew. Great interview. All right, everybody. This is This Week in Startups. You can follow us on Twitter at TWI Startups and thisweekinstartups.com. With me, the Homebrew guys. You can follow them at Homebrew on Twitter or at Hunter Walk or at Satya P, SATYAP. All right, let's talk a little bit about YouTube.
Yep.
YouTube is about to get creamed and demolished by huge lawsuits. It's insane. They wind up selling in a shocking move by Google. Everybody in the industry is just absolutely stunned. This is incredible. And you're at Google during that time. What was it like there when they made that decision? How do you think they came to that decision to buy YouTube?
I think Google saw a new content type becoming part of the web, and that was video. Because of the accessibility of Flash, increasing bandwidth on both the consumption side, but also ease of creating video. You had sort of started off with a web that was text and then images, and video was going to be the next important, high density of information, high value publishing medium. And there were a number of different platforms that at the time were trying to bring video to the web. Google had one, of course, Google Video. But it was clear that the pace of innovation that YouTube was moving at. I always think, I sort of say, they did a few things right, a lot of things not wrong, and they kept the site up during the incredible growth.
Yeah, well, that was the challenge, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just keeping it up.
Because now that's seems so silly to say. It's like, oh yeah, well you just just throw some more Amazon servers on it and things like that.
Right.
But you remember,
Amazon didn't exist.
Sites like Friendster and so on and so forth that through their hyper growth, had latency or downtime issues that really sort of ended up hurting them. And YouTube, consumed more bandwidth than that, and it could have been a real issue. But the technical team was just so strong and had actually everyone, a large percent of the technical team had worked together at PayPal or eBay or one other startup together. And so as they reassembled, they were able just to sort of ring the bell and say, okay, we're building this. Okay, what's the push process like? How are we coding this? And everyone spoke the same language already. So I think, there's obviously lots of things that contribute to YouTube's success. I think one of the undercredited stories is about that core technical team and the fact that they'd all worked together before.
And the storage was extraordinary. I don't know that anybody has ever stored or ever continues to store as much as YouTube.
There were some folks who used to insist to me that, YouTube, Google couldn't possibly store all that video. Aren't you going to start deleting it at some point? And we always just operated under the idea, especially once we got into to Google, and Eric just said, look, for that first 18 months, I want you to just focus on keep growing, make this service better. Because, as you pointed out, there was a lot going on. YouTube it was phosphorus, it was burning hot. But there were questions about whether it could be a furnace. Could it burn long?
Yeah.
And that was both, can the site stay up? Is it a fad? Yeah, will this ever make money? And is it legal? And during sort of my 4.5, 5 years, like those were the questions we were charged with answering.
Right. And they all got answered pretty well.
I think so. And I think some of them would have been difficult to answer as an independent company. Some of them would have been difficult to answer with almost any other type of acquirer. But Google was a great place for YouTube to land.
If it was independent right now with its $6 billion in revenue, what would it be worth?
That's such an interesting question, right? Because you compare to the multiples that a Twitter and a Facebook are at, and you have to believe that it's somewhere in between the two of those.
So where do you put it?
Well, what's Twitter is a $25 billion company today.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Something like that. It's
and
been
Facebook's
high.
$150 billion, right?
So where would you put it?
Let's split the difference.
Okay, $75 billion.
At today's multiples, yeah.
And
you've got a business that's as sort of you suggest is certainly in the billions of dollars of revenue range. That's been doubling year over year for a while. That reaches 1 billion people. That owns their own mobile experience, and the YouTube of mobile is YouTube.
Yeah.
And competes in a market that is a $500 billion market worldwide in terms of television.
A much bigger market than social.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, at least
currently
today.
I used to love when I'd see everyone talk about all the social media properties and never include YouTube, even though we were probably
the most
social, because we weren't fighting over those budgets. We were starting to already fight over display and TV budgets.
TV budgets, yeah. Satya, if you could pick owning, just magic wand gets waved here, and you own Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. And you get to own it for the next 10 years, which would you rather own?
I own 2 of those 3.
No, own the entirety of.
Own the entirety
and
of.
And said another way, which will be the most important company in 10 years? The most important brand, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter? 10 years from now.
I think Facebook.
You do? Why?
I do. Because I think they have the most room, desire, and ability to innovate.
Okay, so the team is really driven and
the team and the platform.
Yeah.
And they're not constrained by being owned by Google, in some sense by YouTube, and Twitter is just a different beast.
Yeah.
Having spent time there.
He knows too
Hunter,
much.
what do you
think? He knows too much about YouTube and Twitter. So
exactly.
He picks the one.
So what do you think?
Definitely knows least.
Which you think would be more important in 10 years? Which you'd rather own if you could go run it now for 10 years? What do you think?
Oh, I'm a YouTube loyalist. That's why I think that's one reason we don't invest a lot in video is because I can't tell whether I'm the best or the worst video investor in the world because of my time there.
Why YouTube?
He's the best non-investor because he won't invest in anything that touches video.
I believe that if Google can't figure out how to get everybody in the world to watch at least one video a month on YouTube, it's falling short. Because anybody with access to a television is eventually going to be online, and you should be able to figure out how to get them to watch 2, 5, 15, 30, 60 minutes of video. And that seems like, for me, a more sure bet than saying everyone in the world is going to tweet or everybody in the world is going to
update their status,
or share photos. Yes, but that might not be done on Facebook.
Yeah, this is where we disagree because I think Twitter always had and still has that same opportunity to be the place that every single person in the world comes to keep track of whatever's of interest to them. It doesn't mean that they tweet, but they consume.
They're all wonderful. I mean, for me, sort of holding YouTube aside, like between Twitter and Facebook, I spend way more time on Twitter.
Yeah, me too.
And since I became a parent, I end up posting more kid photos to Facebook. So it's interesting to watch my own behavior age. But I think that they all have wonderful potential. I just look at the question about what do we know for sure people are going to be doing in 5 to 10 years, and I know for sure they're going to be watching video.
All right, when we get back from this break, I want to know why you guys decided, instead of retiring with all those Google options, my God, how much of your Google stock must have been worth? I mean, you guys are topped out. I mean, you guys must have done incredible. But you could have retired, but instead you decided you're going to start a VC firm. I want to know why when we get back from this very important commercial break. Yes, Wistia is the best video solution. I love video, I love doing the show, but I was a little frustrated with some of the free players out there, putting all this kind of like promotional stuff for themselves on my videos. And I decided I wanted to have a clean, crisp, delicious, perfect video experience when you went to thisweekinstartups.com. A big player, HD, just gorgeous. And the ability in Stream to collect emails, because other services, they don't care about you. They care about marketing themselves and sucking your traffic back to their domain name. I'm not going to say names, YouTube, but these other players, they are experts at trying to steal your traffic and send it back to themselves, YouTube. But the truth is, Wistia cares about you, and it's a paid service where you pay them a very modest fee. They serve your videos, and you get to collect all the audience. You get to collect the emails. You get to keep the people on your site. You get to design how the product and the UX is designed so the traffic stays on your site, and you build a deeper and deeper and deeper relationship with your audience. Every week, we collect dozens and dozens of email, which are the lifeblood of any content business, is that direct relationship with your 1,000 true fans. Go ahead and sign up. People like MailChimp, Moz, Blank Label, and This Week in Startups use the product. It has amazing analytics that are like, they blow all the other competitors out of the water. I love the analytics. We look at them every day, literally. Go to wistia.com/twist, wistia.com/twist. No credit card required. Of course, they're confident in their ability, and your first 5 videos are free. So just test it. And if you work in the industry where, you have to, your friends say, hey, where should I host my videos? Where should I host videos? Just tell them, get Wistia. It is brilliant. And it works awesome on Twitter. I use it on Twitter now because it sort of embeds, I guess they have Twitter cards, which is genius because it looks so much better than those other free players. And they have great support and all that kind of stuff. It is lightweight and perfect. I love Wistia. Go ahead and thank Wistia on Twitter. Thank you at Wistia for making @Jason happy with his videos finally. Okay, an amazing program here with Homebrew. Let's get back to this great discussion. Thank you, Wistia. All right, Satya, Hunter, you guys each made $1 billion in the on the Google IPO. We all know that. It's in the S1 documents. That's not true. I'm joking. But I'm assuming you guys did very well, millionaires many times over, and you can just go to an island and just raise your kids and have a lot of sleep and whatever. You decide you're going to go back to work and start a VC firm. Why?
Well, I think the first thing that we decided had nothing to do with starting a VC firm. The first thing we decided was to work together again. So
you enjoyed it that much.
We had worked together for 4 years, 3 years at Google total overlap. And since Hunter moved over to YouTube and I moved over to Battery, we did a number of advising things together. We made some investments together. We became family friends. And so we're always looking for opportunities to work together again, including even when I was over at Twitter. And we finally decided that if we didn't shit or get off the pot at this point, it wasn't ever going to happen because we'd be tied up doing the next thing.
He didn't think I was ever going to leave.
Yeah.
You loved being at YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, that will always hold a sort of place in my heart as a product, a community, and a team that had some great experiences.
Yeah.
But I finished. I knew that I finished my time there.
Yeah.
Like the next team was ready to challenge TV, was ready to answer this question about what % of TV hours and dollars can we be, and I said, I got ready to go. I had my child. I have a daughter, and I didn't want her first memories of daddy at work to be part of a 50,000 person company. I wanted her to see things getting built.
Cool.
I wanted her to come to an office that existed because we were busting our ass trying to do something, and betting and funding people who had even harder tasks, building an operating company. And so, put that to mind. And, if I look at anything of our success to date, it bought me a few years where I don't have to worry about, I can pay myself last, right? Yeah. And so we didn't have to go work at another fund where, there was a cushy salary ready to take, or, a history of deal flow coming in the door just because, there's hundreds of millions of dollars to back entrepreneurs. We sort of decided to create a startup. It would just be one that writes checks instead of code.
So you decide to raise the $35 million seed fund.
We decided to raise a $25 million seed fund. It got turned into a $35 million seed fund once we started fundraising.
And this is all individuals, I take it, or institutions? Because you're first-time guys. I'm assuming it's
it's
individuals.
97% institutional money.
Is it really?
Yes.
I would have thought the opposite.
You know us. You know how good we are.
You really got institutions to do it?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what's an example for the audience who doesn't know what LPs and how that works?
So we have 4 major institutions, 2 fund-to-funds.
Okay.
Who are people who professionally invest money for larger money holders. 1 university endowment.
Great.
And 1 family foundation.
Yeah, it was funny because going into this, Satya knew this world and, in fact, knew some of these LPs. For me, it was totally new. And so, actually, when we finished fundraising, I wrote a blog post called sort of 100 days of Homebrew, because we had this process that I don't think people talk a lot about. And so we reached out. I think we ended up getting introduced to about 40 institutional LPs, all of whom had invested already in the early stage space and invested in a a friend's fund, like Steve Anderson at Baseline or Chris Sacca at Lowercase. So all our introductions came via sort of their favored GPs. Based upon what we were doing and where they were in their own investment life cycle, those 40 turned into 20 meetings, turned into like 10 real kind of diligence, turned into what, six offers, and we took 4 of those. So it doesn't look any different in some ways. Raising a first fund is like raising a seed round.
This was our seed round for our startup.
Yeah, you ask a bunch of folks, you try to find the best partners, you're going to hear some no's, and you hear enough yeses, and you're off. You're off in business.
So what is your thesis for investing? Like you always hear like these people who start funds like, oh, we have this thesis. Do you have a thesis? Why do these VCs have a thesis? Is it so you can go to the LPs and get the money? That here's my thesis, my unfair advantage or something?
Yeah, I mean, getting back to your earlier question, we started all this because we wanted to work together again. The second thing we decided, which came from our personal experience at AdSense and YouTube and Twitter, was that we really believe in this notion that technology is a liberating force, right? It's leveling the playing field between the head of the tail and the long tail. It's becoming cheap enough, accessible enough, flexible enough where the little guy can compete effectively against the big guy or create markets where none existed before. And by the way, there's some economic necessity for these little players to find new revenue streams or reduce costs as well. And so that was the theme that we got focused on because of our own experience, even before we decided on the fund. And now we refer to it as the bottom-up economy. But that's the idea, is that technology is trickling down and enabling these little players to build mass markets and build big companies.
Yeah. And when we knew, from an investment model standpoint, we knew we wanted to focus on seed, that the first 3 years of a company's life were the ones that, in our own personal experience working with our hands, being, for me, angel investing, Satya in venture, the ones we got most excited about. And so, our true north was simply to try to create the type of fund we would want it to take money from. And, that meant being kind of all in partners of conviction. We look to, lead, co-lead, seed rounds. We don't wait to see who else is interested. We don't want to make a commitment that says, hey, we'll write a small check. We want to write a smaller number of large checks and then, go to sleep and wake up working on behalf of the companies we've backed.
So that's 250, 500, $1 million. What do you guys write typically?
We write between $500,000 and $1 million.
Yeah.
In a very, 8 to 10 companies a year, and then we roll up our sleeves and ask for homework.
Yeah, I think they sort of, everyone says value add, and we don't want to, it's a fine line because you actually don't want to invest, or at least we don't think about investing in teams that need our help to succeed. Right. You want to invest in teams that are going to kick ass and know what their company is going to be, but look at putting their investors around a table, just like they would hire, a team, and say, okay, I want, somebody in the seat who's, been an operator. I want someone in the seat who knows this domain expertise. I want somebody in the seat who has a ton of investment relationships. And so we see ourselves as sort of, the venture capital operators turn venture capitalist seat, and fortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs seem to want that seat at their table.
We've seen a lot of these new funds, bunch of people raising 10, 20, $30 million funds, and they all seem to be people who are like entrepreneurial, founderish kind of people. Why do you think this new trend is happening?
I think there's 2 things. There's a macro change in the industry. Right, the big funds, the successful funds, continue to get big and rich. Right, the benchmark Sequoias, Greylocks of the world. The funds kind of below that tier are all struggling to figure out their place in the world because they haven't been able to deliver returns, and many of them are downsizing. And LPs have to put their money somewhere, and they can't get into Sequoia, Greylock, and benchmark. So they're funding a whole new generation of companies that will eventually grow. Some of them will grow to fill that gap. And the others will continue to play in kind of the seed stage or the early stage of the market. So you've got that macro trend. And I think you've got a trend where people are either making good money on the operating side and feel like they can contribute to the entrepreneurial culture, or there are people who are leaving the bigger funds that have either struggled or have decided they don't want to operate in the context of a larger organization and are taking an opportunity to raise a smaller fund. So you've got a bunch of really interesting dynamics in the market right now.
Yeah, I think, we sort of joke, it's never been easier to become a VC, but it's never been harder to stay one. So I don't think, a lot of these folks who raise I think you'll see a lot of one and dones or two and dones over the next decade, either because it turns out that somebody wasn't good at this job, it's hard, or couldn't deliver the results that LPs expect, and they'll cycle through new managers looking for the person or the team that's actually committed to building something institutional that they can put money into every 3 years.
What do you think makes a great VC today in this market? Because things have changed tremendously. And what do you think the entrepreneurs of today want in a VC?
Well, Satya, you did VC in 2000 for a year or two, in 4 years, and now, so you probably have the best perspective.
I mean, it's pretty simple, right? You have to have access to great companies. You have to be a great picker, and you have to be able to help those companies be more successful at a higher probability and at a faster rate than they would have been otherwise.
Which one's most important of those three?
You have to be a great picker.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So most people who are here can get the deal flow and get the meeting, but picking the right one to invest in is the hard part.
And having them pick you in this environment.
So getting
the partner
yes.
of choice, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Especially as, I mean, the difference between being, so I have a relatively successful, set of angel investments that I made, but I don't look at that, and when we were, deciding to do this fund, I look at that as almost totally separate from the question about whether I'm going to be a good VC or not, because, there's a lot of, you're a nice guy, well-connected, have some operating experience, you can usually get 10,000, 25,000 of a $2 million round.
No problem.
The question about whether an entrepreneur chooses you to write that $500,000, $750,000 check is very different.
You've written about this, yeah.
Yeah, and so that one, we try to operate very transparently. Like, we pick the path that we think adds value first for entrepreneurs. If entrepreneurs succeed, then our investors succeed, and then we'll do fine downstream.
Getting the allocation is the name of the game.
Yeah, and I come out of this, we're sort of, hitting our 1 year anniversary. I'm absolutely sure the quality of the deal flow we've seen is such that a great fund could be constructed on top. I absolutely love the 10 companies we've backed. I think there's going to be, many in there that are institutions for years and years to come. But, we're in year one of a lot of these companies' existence. Like, I don't know if I'm a great picker yet. Satya just had 2 companies sell for $400 million a piece that he invested in a battery in 07 and 08, and at the A stage and B stage, right? Mm-hmm. So it's already 7 years, to see a high multiple exit. Like, we are just getting started.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
Yeah. Especially given the type of stuff we invest in, we despite seeing a lot of video, a lot of social, it doesn't really fit our investment profile of trying to write fewer, larger checks. And so I don't think we'll have many sort of, 0 to billion within 12 months because of, an app goes viral. We're going to have a lot of companies that build, businesses that have enterprise value in the, hundreds of millions or billions, but it's going to take time.
All right, you invested in Wealthfront.
As angels. As angels.
Oh, as angels.
Yeah.
You got it in the angel round or the first, whatever the first round was? Seed round, A round?
It was a little bit after. It was after we both know Adam Nash from LinkedIn and Greylock, and once he came on board, he
had
invited
Andy
us
Ratcliffe
to
on the
invest.
program. He's
yeah,
great.
they're doing great. As
I'm
you
an
just saw,
advisor.
they just raised another round and stuff. So
full disclosure, I'm an advisor, and I love the product, and I use it. Do you guys have money in Wealthfront?
Yes,
well,
absolutely.
I've told Adam though that that I think the money that I invest in Wealthfront, the company, will beat the money I put in Wealthfront as a money manager. So we're trying to figure out
which will do better.
I think the company.
Well,
I think
okay,
both
now here's
will
a
do
very
great.
personal question. What number are you on in Wealthfront? I'm gonna guess. You're an 8. You're a 10. What are you dialed into in Wealthfront? What is your risk tolerance? What did you set it at? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I think you're right. I'm a 10.
You're a 10. You just went pedal to the metal.
Was that
Fuck
was that after Twitter went public? Or?
He's like, fuck it, I'll put it on 10.
I was an angel and was a customer before Twitter IPO.
I love it. You just put me into emerging markets, everything I'm going to be. For people who don't know, what I'm joking is when you go through Wealthfront, you answer a bunch of questions and it gives you an idea of what your risk tolerance is, and then you can set it between 1 and 10 on a dial.
Yep.
And I put mine on 10 too.
You live at that level, Jason.
I live on the side.
If there was an 11,
that's what I was going to
You should have a
say.
secret 11.
He lives at 11. He invests at 10.
And you're also 20% in Bitcoin now. But they just came out with the iPhone app, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
they're doing a
a
great
well-run
job.
company. $800 million under management.
It's fantastic.
incredible
One of
team
our,
there.
Andy Johns, who leads growth over there, is one of the advisors to our fund. He previously did growth at Quora, at
Twitter and Facebook.
And so we feel good about our angel investment there, and just wish we could have put more in.
Yeah.
I think everybody feels that way, by the way. So you got a little mini home run there, but a time you put into Sunrise.
That was another
the app
one.
Sunrise, was that an individual or
as an individual? Yeah. So
I love the Sunrise app. It's on my homepage.
Yeah. Of course, when
I'm
we
going
started,
through the ones I love.
Well, yeah, well, it's great. When we started raising Homebrew, we sort of had to curtail our angel behavior. So we got a few last good ones in, Angel List, Wealthfront, Sunrise, before the doors slammed shut, and we turned our attention fully.
Here's one I love, the Skim.
Yes.
Explain what the Skim is and why you invested $500,000 in it, or whatever you did.
So the Skim
or $1 million, who knows what you
is a next generation media company. They are starting with a daily email newsletter that is written with a particular voice, targeted primarily at millennial women, but appeals much more broadly. And what it does is it summarizes the daily news in an editorial context, and sends an email that makes it really easy for you to know what you should know about everything going on in the world.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, this is a fantastic company. It was first-time entrepreneurs, 2 women out of New York.
Yeah, we invested because, one, the 2 entrepreneurs there are phenomenal. They come out of NBC News, where they're news producers, and they are their audience and understand their audience cold. Secondly, on the backs of MailChimp and WordPress, they had created this incredible email newsletter, highly engaged community, open rates you would not believe, and they bootstrapped it, and they were in a position where they would ask people for help, and people wanted to help them because they're those kinds of entrepreneurs.
So you experienced, when you met that team, a high level of execution without spending a ton of money.
Yes.
And a lot of domain expertise and a well-crafted product. That makes it an easy investment.
Just the 2 of them. You know, I sort of call it disrupt your industry with love as opposed to contempt. So you had these 2 women who were fast rising at NBC News. They could have stayed there 5, 10, 20 years. They would have done fine within the news industry, even if the news industry itself was shrinking because of their talent. But they woke up each day realizing that the institutions they were part of, not NBC in particular, but traditional media, was growing less relevant to their demographic and successive demographics. And so, as opposed to sort of just staying the course and raging against news and saying, let's just solve this with an algorithm. You don't need writing, you don't need editorial, you don't need brand. They created something that represented what they love, which is high quality news you need to know. And it serves a demographic where, I mean, Jason, you know how powerful brand can be. We just couldn't think of a brand for millennial women and younger that stood for trusted brand and what you need to know. And of course that works great in news, but I think it works across a number of other verticals. And ultimately, they'll be as impactful in helping their consumer, helping their community answer questions about what they need to know, as they sort of like to say, as the Today Show was 50 years ago. For housewives.
Love that product. Really
and talent grabs talent. It was amazing because the 2 of them, they raised a little bit of money, and
talent grabs talent.
Yeah, they got the guy who was running analytics for Fab came over to run email and growth for them. They just hired a great BD lead, and so one of the things I've already seen in my first year in my operating history and previous investments, you can just tell when a team is special, because even in tightly constrained talent markets, they find ways to hire. They find ways, not just people who are looking for jobs, but people who are leaving jobs to come join
magnets,
them.
Talent
And
magnets.
we talk about being mission driven, and these 2 women, like many others that we try to invest in, have a mission beyond creating a company. It's about changing media so that it's more accessible and useful for everyone in the world, and that helps attract talent too.
Those people are dangerous recruiters. Don't let those types of founders into your company. They will take your people.
I know. I love that. Ship. I had him on the program recently. What is Ship? Why did you invest in it? When did you meet him?
Yeah. So, it's funny. We invested, was it like late summer, early fall? So they raised around, they were one of the first companies actually to raise via an AngelList syndicate. So
Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, so we co-led with Tim Ferriss and his syndicate. And
now you like them or you don't? Because you wrote a piece after I wrote my piece about syndicates changing everything, and I thought it was a little snarky or a little bit like, hey, I don't know about these party rounds.
I love.
We're investors in AngelList. You realize that, right?
I love syndicates.
Okay,
We're
but I mean,
incredibly
you were kind of like, hey,
I
party
love-
rounds are not cool. So, you have some misgivings about it?
No, I think what you.
Are
see,
you conflicted?
no conflict, no interest. Right?
Exactly.
I think the best. So look, there used to be a leaderboard on AngelList that just had syndicate leads with how much was committed to them, right?
Right.
That's now been toggled to the leads that are actually doing deals.
Right. I'm number 2 now, I
Right.
think.
And
Or
so
3.
I think you look at that and you
Kevin
look at that
Rose
list,
and Kevin Rose gone.
right, because
He's not doing it.
and it's no fault of theirs. They're part of venture funds, right?
Right.
So they've got a different job. But when you look at folks like Gil Pinchina, Tim, yourself, I think it's
Scott and Cyan Bannister.
Yeah, it's about getting those folks involved, and you bring additional people. But
Right.
You figure out how to leverage that. That's not the founder's job to deal with the people.
Okay,
in your
so that's
syndicate.
how you resolve.
That's how we like it. So in this case, Tim was the right person to get involved in this business.
Of course. Who
Tim
doesn't want Tim Ferriss
wanted
involved?
to do it through his syndicate. Tim had some folks in his syndicate he knew, and then would raise the additional 250 from the general population, and it made perfect sense. They, Ship could have filled their round twice over without going to AngelList, but it was a strategic decision.
Hot space.
Yeah. So they do first mile shipping as opposed to last mile. Everybody's running around trying to figure out how to get the toothbrush from the drugstore to your house.
Google included.
Yeah. And what they're
Amazon.
actually focused on quite uniquely is this idea that individuals, whether it's an e-commerce return or a gift, and especially small businesses and small e-commerce platforms, the Shopifys of the world, the Etsys of the world, you have people who don't want to do third-party logistics as a competency, right? They just want to take a picture of an item or items and say, come pick this up, take it away, package it, and ship it.
So genius. And it's only $5.
$5 pickup fee. They negotiate discounted rates from the shippers themselves, so they make margin off.
That's what I
the gap
love
between
about
wholesale
that.
and
What
retail.
a great
Two
idea.
Canadians.
We love
Good guys, they
businesses
work
where
together.
the consumer gets a premium experience without a premium cost.
Exactly. And where over time, because they've got the volume, they can do a lot of very interesting stuff. So we love that. But you know what you asked, Jason, one thing you asked was sort of how do we find that deal? What was funny is when we started talking to them, I went back into I was like, this sounds really familiar. Kevin, who you had on, had emailed me 6 months earlier in response to a blog post, and we had met and started talking. And so even though once the deal heated up, it moved pretty quickly, we had both the pre-existing relationship from having, talked with him when he reached out, plus been able to see the idea, the team evolve, to have the confidence, as your buddy Mark Sister says, to see lines, not dots.
Right.
And
So
we had reached out proactively to Kevin after that 6 months had passed.
And
I think two of our 10 investments started with essentially cold emails.
Schematic
Kevin at Ship and one other one.
Schematic Labs, what's that?
Oh, that's another investment advisor for me. So that's Steve Jang, sound tracking.
Okay.
So example of a great guy who I knew sort of doing a business, and I looked at my angel, and it was funny because when we were raising money, people would comb through my angel investments like it was some sort of statement about how I would invest as a VC.
Map to your thinking.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that's kind of like looking at, ask me why I kissed a girl at 17. Did I think I was going to marry her? I was like, I put together a portfolio of companies I'm very proud of, Schematic Labs included, but it certainly wasn't thematic driven.
And it was a little random, right? Like you're just getting started, getting your
I was
legs
doing
under
like 4 deals a year. I was investing in founders I knew, and I was also investing in things that I wouldn't get a chance to do at YouTube, right? So like, you've probably got a dozen things bouncing around your head at any given time, but there's only so many things you can focus on as an operator, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so to be able to deploy a little bit of capital into people you love and help them out, but also see how things develop, it's great.
Talk to me about Up Counsel. This sounds genius.
So Up Counsel is the idea that the largest law firm of the future will be a virtual one.
Oh, good luck.
And we were talking about disrupting with love, so same sort of thing. You got a good-looking, smart, guy at Latham and Watkins. If this was the 80s, year 5, he would marry the beautiful woman. Year 7, he'd buy the Porsche. Year 9, he'd start doing coke. Year 12, he'd be a partner. It would be great.
Divorce.
Yeah, divorce, all that sort of thing. Yeah. But he walked up and he said,
the Ferrari.
He said,
Porsche.
look, I love law. I love practicing law, but the large firm, isn't necessarily right for the small business,
or for the lawyers working.
And for the lawyers who may want to spend more and more time with working directly with clients and family and stuff,
and not be like fudging their hours.
So he noticed a trend of more and more really high quality lawyers going independent and hanging a shingle.
Yeah.
And so he said, well,
better life.
They need a virtual back office. They need somebody to run their platform, and they need demand generation.
I love
So let's build a marketplace. So they
I love a marketplace.
They bootstrapped. They came out of AngelPad, bootstrapped for about 9 months.
Oh, Thomas is AngelPad.
Yeah. Yeah, we got introduced to them via some of the Google guys over there.
It's a very collaborative thing what we do, huh? Like, you and I have breakfast, we talk about things, I tell you what I'm doing, you tell me what you're doing, I met some of the people in your portfolio, you meet some of the people in mine. It's not, at least I feel amongst us. Let's say the sub $100 million funds, listen, I got a tiny $10 million fund, but whatever. But it feels like there's room enough for all of us to succeed, and it's fun to work together. But it feels like for those big firms, they seem like they're in this massive competition with each other. Why is this? Do you think?
I don't know. This is a long game, and I think having been on the operating side for both of us, where we were not fortunate enough to be able to doing what we're doing now and having exposure to the type of people we have exposure to now, we don't think of it as a transaction, and I think lots of the bigger firms think of it as a transaction or as a moment in time. We think of this as a long story arc, and this is continuing to be part of one chapter in our continuing arc, and continuing to want to not just build our own satisfaction and wealth, but in helping an entire community that we hope to be a part of for a long time.
Fund economics too. You're managing a $500 million, $1 billion fund. The return you have to create is multiple of that.
Multiple unicorns.
And so if you're investing at the B round, it's not many dark horses. There's there's a handful of companies everyone's going after, and if you don't get that, you just missed one of your attempts to return the fund. At our level, we're
who knows?
Who knows? We're betting. We're looking to get smart people involved because that company is better off when you're at the table with us than if it's just us and we happen to own a few percentage points more.
Yeah, the big funds all have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, and
Yeah.
so they react accordingly.
We have the opposite, which is like it would be fun to be involved. Like that's how I operate. It'd be fun. I met with some guys doing like a very cool like air quality detection thing. They came out with one of these hardware incubators. I just want to be involved with you guys because I love air quality. I'm obsessed with air quality. Like, do you guys make decisions like that, or am I just odd? Like, I just love the space and I love the product. I just want to be involved.
I think that's one of the things that has to change when you're an angel versus a VC. Right? There are probably lots of things that we see where we want them to exist in the world, but at the end of the day, we're still fiduciaries of our LPs, and our model is to do a very small number of investments and be super involved.
You join the boards?
Yes.
Every time?
We, of the 10 investments, we're on the boards at 9 companies.
We either join the board or make sure that there's another board member who can help nurture. Because a lot of, we look at boards not as something about, as an investor, you need a board seat or control. I mean, at the seed stage, there's nothing.
Companies don't need governance.
Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, there's no, what are you going to do, replace the founder? I'm like, if you have to replace the founder, you made a bad investment. Like, there's no, you don't do that. But, in terms of having these folks, especially people who are running their first company, I don't want their first board meeting to be after the Series A. I want them to build cadence of running their company, and then as they invite more investors into running their company with them, they will incorporate their feedback, build them into the process. But they've got momentum and confidence that this is their ship.
Yeah, board meetings at the seed stage are working sessions, right? It's really an opportunity for people to step away from the day-to-day because it's easy to get wrapped up in that and take a step back to make sure they're answering the big picture questions and focused on the high level.
We walk out of every session like that with as many or more to-do items than the founders do.
Yeah.
So we use those not to sort of say the board wants to see this or so on and so forth. We use it to say, what can we do to help you move faster?
Interesting. How do you guys know if you're succeeding? I mean, it's like you said, you have this 7-year horizon. I mean, do you have any things that you look at when you guys are, taking your walk and having your coffee that you say, like, I think we're doing a good job because of this?
Satya's got the muscle memory for this, so he knows how sort of a life cycle of a fund feels. I'm sort of like the puppy that you let run around in the backyard and tire itself out because I'm so used to being able to have like day-to-day operational metrics. Yeah. So, besides obviously, ultimately sort of mark to market and, sort of return on investment for these companies, we try to just look at a few things. One is of the deals that are thematic for us, how many are we seeing? Are we seeing all the deals we should be? And of the deals that we think there'd be good mutual fit, where we have conviction to sort of make an offer, are we winning those? And we feel like if both of those turn out to be sort of
those are good indicators,
positive indicators, then we shift into post-investment, the helping mode, and things will take care of themselves.
And the other pieces of the companies that we work with, does every CEO, does every founder more than happily take a reference call? Right?
Yeah, and not just like, oh, they're nice guys. Like I want, whether it's our investors or other founders doing diligence on us, I'd like the founders we work with to be able to say specific things we did for them, either at their request or proactively, that made a difference.
Yeah, that's a good one. I do that too. I'm like, I love the reference system on AngelList, like the reviews. It's just like, I'm so lucky that people take the time to write a review, even they're so busy. And boy, I just point people to that. What impact is AngelList having on the business? Then I'll let you guys go. I know you're busy. What impact is it having? Your investors in the last round, the $100 million round, or earlier?
Earlier than that.
Earlier? Good for you guys.
Yeah. So what the impact is AngelList have? AngelList is doing a number of things. One is it's exposing, I think, everybody on the investment side to a broader population of companies. Okay. Because it's no longer a necessity that you have to be connected to someone in the valley to get exposure to money. And I think for us, that's a wonderful thing. If more people can be exposed to us and vice versa, then we're happy to do that. The second thing is it's giving founders and companies an alternative to the traditional financing path, or an alternative to a portion of a syndicate that they're putting together. And again, that can be wonderful if you can get people involved who are going to be helpful, but don't have the financial leverage and are able to get financial leverage because of AngelList.
And I think just a third, almost every one of our companies has had good traction using AngelList talent
for hiring.
Yeah, but now they're charging
it's probably still worth it.
It's expensive, I think. It's $2 or $3 grand a person. But I think that's okay, right? Because what do you spend on a recruiter? 30 grand, 20 grand?
Yeah, somewhere between, what, 15 and 25% first
Yeah,
year
so
salary.
you're talking about
Right.
15, 25 grand. So now if Naval charges 5, yeah.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, we don't, we haven't felt, sometimes people say, oh, this is going to be competitive with venture. I mean, for us, you know, I guess maybe this is the Google training. Like, you focus on your customer, which is in our case, the entrepreneur, and you keep looking out the front, you know, mirror, the front window of the car on where you're going.
Yeah.
You don't worry that much about the rear view or the side view. You check those periodically.
Yeah.
But you can't drive a car quickly by looking in the rear view mirror.
We like things that grow the pie, and I think from our perspective, AngelList helps grow the pie.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I just did my first syndicate. It did over $300,000 on top of the $50,000 I put in. I'm a 10% owner, I guess,
It's awesome.
of com.com, and I was like, wow, this is kind of different, isn't it?
It's great for you to get the leverage. It's great for the people in your syndicate who get access to a deal they probably wouldn't have access
No,
to
they
otherwise.
wouldn't have had access to that. All right, last question. You certainly must have been turned down by now, having put a term sheet in. When you look back on that, why do you think you lost whatever deals you lost? You don't have to mention the name of the companies, but that you must talk about, hey, why did we not get
We
picked?
just talked about it this morning.
Okay, bring me into that discussion
Yeah.
exactly as you
We
had
po-
it.
you know,
Where were you and what
so
was the
this was
discussion?
another thing where, I mean, we, without revealing the companies,
Right,
because
no.
we didn't want to protect them, we actually, you know, towards the end of last year, like, wrote about this. Like, nobody ever writes about their losses. You know, every VC sort of, you build up this sort of, you know, mythology of, you know,
We
your,
rock.
your winners, and you watch people remove the losers from their website, or, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, look, even when it didn't turn out perfect, like, this was a team you should be proud of backing. So
Sure.
there were 2 deals we missed on last year. One was we got beat by a firm that had sort of more wins in the space
category.
In the category.
Okay, so they just happen to be great at enterprise or something.
Right, and so it pushed us to say, well, okay, how do we build out that same credibility earlier than this isn't a Fund 3 issue. This is a Fund 1 opportunity,
Right.
and we think we can do that through a combination of the investments we've made, the advisors we have, and bringing that to bear.
It's a reasonable choice on the part of the entrepreneur. These
Absolutely.
people have more success in this vertical, whatever it is, than these guys. I pick them.
Well, is it reasonable? I don't know, because I think you always have to look and you say, what are they going to do for me now? And I think
Are they hungry enough?
I think we would have been a great partner there.
Did you try to
Or is
outbid
the
the other
investment
one?
of a scale that makes sense for them?
Gotcha. Did you try to outbid them?
No.
Outbid a little bit?
No.
So you don't get into that game?
We
Like-
try to figure out mutually whether we want to work together, and then is there overlap in what we think, you know, the market is saying this company is worth, and what we believe is a good entry point for us.
But you'll chase the valuation a little bit or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say that, like, you have this sort of notion, but you can't go in with a formula because there's, you know, I think we look at sort of that process of fundraising. For me, I look at it more as it shows me how the founder handles that, and it's sort of indication of sort of
Right.
their
So
personality and how they're going to run the company.
If they're ridiculous.
rather than you know, quibbling over, you know, a $500,000 gap in valuation.
If we're the partner of choice only because we're paying the highest price, then it's not a good situation for us to get involved.
We know many of the deals that we've been asked to be a part of, we were not the highest valuation.
And if somebody is being ridiculous about their valuation and just being kind of, I don't know, playing games in the process of like figuring it out, going back and forth and raising the price as more people are interested, you think that reflects poorly on the entrepreneur?
No, I think it reflects naivete, and you know, it's hard to hold entrepreneurs accountable. Well, not that they're not accountable, but it's hard to feel bad about that because the market is encouraging them in a certain way.
Sure, they should make their choices. I mean, we just feel like our advice to them. I mean, and sometimes we've removed ourselves from those situations while trying to give advice and help them make some good decisions.
Yeah.
We said, look, the 2 things you want to end up, make sure you don't end up taking money from somebody you don't want to work with.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not just auctioning yourself.
Right.
And second, realize that the amount you raise, the valuation, and who you take it from, is starting to set a different expectations.
Sure.
About
You move the goalposts.
about what you want to become, and you think you're raising and you're going to spend.
I've been there.
You're going to spend money smartly, but the later stage fund that's writing you a large check at the seed stage, they've got certain goals that may or may not be in line with all of the options you have at this point.
We tell entrepreneurs when they're raising money, your number 1 goal is to get money in the bank. Your number 2 goal is to maintain optionality for your business. And a lot of entrepreneurs have a hard time thinking about it or aren't aware of that line of thinking.
Yeah,
Optionality being, I haven't priced myself out of my next round.
Right. Or an exit that might be appealing to you, but not to your investors.
Yeah, I've raised at 100 instead of 50, and now I can't sell at 100 because there's no return.
Yeah, but I think we've probably been very excited about the sort of quality of founder that.
Who was the other person that turned you down and what you talked about this morning?
Oh, that one was they probably made a rational choice.
Yes.
They paired two funds together, one that was sort of geographically co-located with a bunch of vertical expertise, the other one that was sort of a later stage with vertical expertise, so was sort of coming in and would want to support ongoing. And it was one of those things where we looked at each other and said, this founder made a completely rational decision. We would have liked them to make an irrational one. And the only thing that we came out of that is they said, you know what, we need a playbook for when we feel a deal moving away from us, how do we move faster to get it closed? So not wait for the market to fully form if we have conviction before other funds do.
Right. You need to have like an emergency plan.
Yeah.
Like this boat's leaving the station. We gotta be on it.
And it's not exploding term sheets or trying to pressure the entrepreneur, things like that.
Nonsense.
Because you're trying to work with them for several years, and that's not the right way to start a relationship.
Yeah, you want to start the relationship off with like either you date me or I'm out of here.
But I think it's about sort of creating a way for them. No entrepreneur really loves spending time fundraising. So I think it's about getting to the point as quickly as possible to let them get off the road and get back to building their company.
Yeah, maybe like here's a term sheet. We'll fund today. We really want to be in this business.
Right. We'll close before the rest of the rounds close. The money's in the bank. Who else do you want us to get on board? Go, go, go.
Love it. All right, listen, guys. Satya Patel and Hunter Walk of Homebrew. Follow at Homebrew. Go visit homebrew.co. Hunter, great blogger and really a funny tweeter. And you know what I like about you, Hunter? I kind of like you. Like I feel like we're similar guys in that we're both blunt.
East Coast.
Well, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Queens.
I was Queens.
Oh, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Got
it's
a boroughs thing going.
Get a boroughs thing going because you know what? Everybody's so full of shit in this town. It's kind of, especially investors. Everybody's so on message, on point, and this whole thing of trying to keep up their, fronts and stuff like that. You just call bullshit on. I mean, the first time you called bullshit on me, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And then I was like, oh wow, this guy's a good writer. I think you're a good writer too. You write, Satya? I never see you write.
I do. Not as frequently as this guy, but nobody can.
You can't really be a VC these days if you don't have a podcast and you're not writing stuff and you're not on stage with a rapper.
That's right.
So who's your rapper that you're going to be on stage with at South by next year? I'm making a joke.
I've got some. I grew up, in hip hop.
Me too.
And now I feel like I can't put any rap lyrics in my blog posts.
No, I mean if you do, you're just like cribbing. But I'm a big B.I.G. Who do you? Jay-Z, B.I.G. Who do you like? Biggie Smalls?
Well, it started with. I mean, my entry was like Run DMC, LL Cool J, all of that.
Really,
stuff.
Beasties.
Yeah.
Good old school stuff.
Nice little Jewish guy from Long Island. I mean, the Beasties were my.
Yeah, I'm an Irish kid from Brooklyn.
Right?
That was it. Yeah. So funny. I'm at Sky Dayton's birthday party in Vegas. I'm sitting next to the guy. I'm talking to him. I'm like, I kind of know this guy. Like, what do you do? I'm a musician. Well, wait, how do I know? Mike D. So I'm sitting with like one of the Beasties, and I'm like, let's go play blackjack in between courses. He's like, I don't gamble. I was like, do you have money? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you're gambling now. Come on. We go to the high roller stakes. We lose like $2 or $3 grand each. Come back. His wife's like, what's going on? We're losing money.
There you go.
It was classic.
I did not have that experience.
So you'll be on stage at the next South by with Mike D.
Of course. Yeah. Yes, of course. No, definitely not. All right, listen, you did a great job, guys. Thanks for coming on the program. Everybody, thank you to my sponsors. Thank you to the producers. Thank you to Emily, Gina, Jade, Andrew, Brandis. We're going to miss you. Welcome to the team, Jacob, Demont, Brandon, Luke, keeping the lights on. Follow me at Jason. Follow Hunter Walk at Hunter Walk and Satya, P-S-A-T-Y-A-P. We'll see you next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.